My girlfriend 21 female cheated on me 23 male with my father 54 male. Do I cut my dad off or try to forgive him? My girlfriend and father phoned me last week to tell me they had a week-long affair a few months ago, and they wanted to tell me about it. In their own words, there were only 3 instances of contact, and after the third occasion, they both felt terrible and humiliated about their actions and feelings. Since then, they'd wanted to tell me, but haven't had the confidence to do so. I was aware that they got along well and that they had a number of mutual interests, but I had no idea what was going to happen. I'm in a terrible state of health. I haven't eaten much since they told me of the situation. I haven't officially ended my relationship with her yet, but it's evident that I haven't returned any of her texts or returned any of her phone calls. When they first told me of the situation, and after it had taken effect, I left and haven't talked to anybody outside of the workplace since. My whole family and social circle has treated me as if I were a full and total phantom. My father and I have a really tight relationship. He's someone I've looked up to my whole life. When Dad and my mother divorced when I was a teenager, they stayed close to one another, which made the process much more pleasant for everyone involved. I'd want to be able to forgive my father. If, on the other hand, my fiancé had cheated on me with someone else, I would simply cut them both off from the rest of my life. And in a weird way, my father has done much more harm to me than she has done to me. I'd be able to get over a cheating partner in no time. My relationship with my father, which I cherished, has been ruined, though, because of this. It is all his fault. Question: should I forgive my father for what happened to him? In what capacity am I expected to be forgiving? Should I tell my mother or brother about this? Would it be cruel of me to completely block him off from the world, as my heart begs me to do? Update. As a result, I notified my mother and brother, as directed by everyone. My mother was inconsolable, and we ended up talking for many hours. She said that she was not shocked by the situation. She accused him of having an extramarital affair with one of their pupils while they were married. My father is a charming gentleman, and my mother assured me that many girls would be delighted to shower him with such affection. She couldn't say for certain if he had been unfaithful. My brother's reaction was exactly what I had predicted. He blamed my ex-girlfriend and urged me to date less trashy women in the future. I'm not sure if I'm understanding what you're getting at, but whatever. Even before I met him, I had a strong dislike for him. She contacted and texted me on a regular basis throughout the following week after I ended my relationship with my ex. That was the gist of it. She loves me and believes I should forgive her since she made a mistake and is ashamed of herself for doing so. After all, she said, it was only 4, and she wanted to fulfill her fantasy of having with an older guy teacher before we were married, so she agreed. I didn't respond to any of her phone calls or respond to any of her messages. I hadn't heard from my father in a few days when he came to my house to express his regret. He let himself in since he had a key, and we had a nice conversation. He told me that the relationship started with a little flirtation on their part. They ultimately got together for. He said that despite the fact that they had 3 times, only the 3rd session was really penetrative. She apparently brushed him off in the first 2 instances, and he then fingered her. He stated this as though I should be relieved that they had only done it once before. In reality, I was concerned that I had developed a thorough mental picture of the situation. I questioned as to whether he had had any contact with my ex-girlfriend. He said yes, and that they had dinner together as friends a number of times since he was worried about her well-being. My ex-girlfriend claimed that I was emotionally torturing her, and my father believes that he is responsible for her behavior. I informed him that if he continued to contact her, I would never be able to have a relationship with him. He told me that I was his son and that he would always be a part of my life, which I accepted. I just refrained from speaking up. He then warned me that informing my mother and brother would be a complete disaster, as if I was aiming to tarnish his reputation. My work was done, so I just nodded and expressed my regret. I was well aware that it was a cowardly act, but I didn't want to get myself into a fight. That occurred only a few days ago. I haven't told anybody else about it, other from my immediate family. I'm still uncertain about whether or not I should cut off all contact with my father. A part of me believes it, and a part of me does not believe it. My apologies has caused some concern among the public. I have no remorse. I told him that because that was what he wanted to hear and because I wanted him to be released. I was just nodding in agreement at the time, in order to avoid a dispute and him perhaps staying for a longer period of time. Also, I should have asked for the key, but like someone else said, it's difficult for me to approach him. So I'll admit that I wasn't thinking straight at the time. Story 2. GF of 9 years dumped me. I'm not doing great. Hello. Please bear with me as this is a bit long. Despite the fact that we've been together for approximately 9 years, it's been a long-distance relationship. However, we only saw each other every 3 weeks at the most. We were over heels in love with one another and really felt we were soulmates. Of course, we had our own problems as well. For example, she would be jealous of any of my friends who were of the opposite to her. Because of my questionable decision to spend the night at their place after a party, I did raise some trust issues with them. Despite the fact that I did not cheat or anything, she never forgot things like this. Another concern was my high school. I should have finished my degree 3 years ago, but I'm still suffering, while she completed her degree and has been employed for 3 years. You can probably guess where this is headed. Consequently, when the pandemic started, I was forced to travel 12 hours to live with my family, a route that was not much shorter by air since the nearest airport was 3 hours away. Because she was working, we didn't get to see one another as regularly. In the preceding 2 years, I'd only seen her 5 times in total. This further aggravated our problems, and she eventually lost interest in me as a result of it. She asserts that if I had sought a future with her, I would have continued living my life and establishing a professional career before meeting her. I agree with her, but I don't believe it was necessary to get to this conclusion. This is especially true given that we had discussed finding me a job only 2 months before the breakup. She has said that she no longer loves me. She has said that she will never talk to me again. As you can imagine, I'm in severe anguish as a consequence of everything that's happened. As a result, I attempted to contact her several times, but her stance remained unchanged. Although I feel she is just as lonely as I am, she has refused to spend time with me in spite of my pleas. As a result, I'm now looking for a remote or in-person job so that I can at the very least demonstrate to myself and her that things may have turned out differently. And at the very least, see her once again. She agreed to meet with me if I could, by the way, make the necessary changes. That's the one thing that's given me reason to be hopeful, since once we were together, all of our problems seemed to evaporate. I hope and pray that if I make some positive changes in my life, she would want to spend more time with me. It's almost as though I look forward to it every day. As a result, I'd want to hear your comments. Is it really possible to preserve this at this point? Is it possible for her to forgive me for creating a bleak picture of the future and reignite her feelings? Have you faced similar circumstances in the past? And if so, how did things work out? Firstly, thank you for taking the time to read this. I much appreciate your consideration.